Hello my lovelies, lovely for you to stop by. It's Caroline here and welcome to my new series called Spilling the Tea. And I'm here drinking my Irish Barry's tea. It has to be Barry's. Why am I doing this? Well, am I doing anything? What are we? Where are we going? No, I'll stop now. I started this YouTube back in November and I've got a few more subscribers now and some lovely views. Thank you, first of all. And I thought, wow, if you're going to be watching videos, you want to know what I'm about, who I am, and the weird and wonderful mess and incomplete and flawed mess that is me, Caroline. So this video is all going to be about moving to London alone, because that is what I did at age 24. I moved completely alone to a city I had visited before but had not lived in before. It was my first time living away from home. But yeah, I was entirely alone, and my first advice is to don't overthink it and just do it. If you want a change, nothing is going to change without you doing something about it. Good things come to people who do, not to those who wait, and I really believe that and live by that. By the time I was 24, I sort of I'd always been in Dublin, I'd lived there, got a school there, all of that, and I just wanted to see a different aspect of the world, and I wanted to be in a bit more diverse environment. And London was the obvious choice because it was so easy to get to, and culturally, language, all of that stuff. I'm not saying that Ireland and England are the same, definitely wouldn't dare say that, but there are enough similarities to make a transition smooth. My next tip is to, excuse me, get a job. Get a job! Oh god, that's just this like big life advice, get a job. No. Prior to moving, I found it really helpful to have a job because it made the first few months a lot easier in terms of knowing that I was going to be able to pay my rent. Yeah, that is something I'd highly recommend, is if you can get a job prior to moving. And it's not a prerequisite, but for me, I'm an anxious person anyway, so getting a job before you go really helped. And then in terms of where to live, I then knew the area roughly I wanted to live in based on where my job was. Like, here was the thing, I didn't want to be right on top of where I worked, but I knew I wanted to be an easy distance because when I lived in Ireland, I commuted. But I thought to myself, I don't know, working as well as finance in London, like working, you just can have long hours, you don't know what to expect. I knew there was going to be a learning curve, so I didn't want to be taking on a big journey at the end of my day. I wanted some sort of like decompression moment, whether that was a long walk or something. But so I knew I was going to be working in Canary Wharf. I'm not working there now, but I loved working in Canary Wharf. Maybe I'll do a video about working in Canary Wharf, who knows. Working in Canary Wharf, East London was just an obvious choice. And well, I did move to London alone, but I knew of a couple of people. Wasn't very close with them, but I knew from my childhood people that had moved over, and there was a girl I was in school with, secondary school with, who we'd lost touch just through life, and I messaged her and she recommended this area, which is the Olympic Village, the East Villages. And I'm still in the area years later, so I think it's a good thing. But moving to a big city is daunting, but it's less daunting when you have a clear focus and, right, okay, I'm gonna be working there, so I need to live around here. And if you can try and live somewhere near a person you even maybe like know a little bit, and don't be worried if you haven't spoken to them in years. Like, I had not seen this girl for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I think we might have exchanged the odd message before that. But even just having somebody a little bit close by that is not a complete stranger just gives you that sense of a bit of comfort. Generally then, when you're in a new work environment, don't date someone in your new work environment. That's the next tip. What are we on to? Are we on to tip 3? I'll number these. It can be very exciting to be in a new country when you're single and wanting to go out in the evening and go on dates and that, but just don't do it in the office, even though it's tricky because like you don't know anyone, and the people that you meet in your office, they become friends, they become almost like your pseudo family when you're living away from your family. But I just wouldn't do it unless you see something like very long term with them, because people do meet at workplaces and then go on to live very fruitful lives together. I would just avoid doing that. And I speak through experience. Maybe there'll be another video on that, I don't know. I'd have to be very brave to do that. Yeah, my next tip really is in terms of making friends. Yes, it's important to have a circle of people that you can trust, but it takes time to get that right circle, and I wouldn't rush into friendships. And the reason I say that is I've been burnt. It sounds like a relationship, it sounds very like I hate myself, but the reality is it just takes time. Developing friendships takes time, and give it that time. Stay in touch with your friends at home and all of that, and you know, make friends through your work. I'm not saying don't, because they also can be a big support system for you, but I would just be mindful of going to too many meetups. So for example, I went to like a meetup and I was 24, and there were some older men, at the time older men, like 40s is not old, but when you're 24 and you see someone in their 40s, and it was like a professionals, young professionals meetup, and they were clearly using it as a way to score younger people. And when you're vulnerable and you don't know people in the city, you can think the best or all of these things, and you can just get yourself into situations, and I don't mean like serious situations, but I just mean like inconvenient situations. So the next thing I want to talk about is whether you should live alone or live with somebody. So I did both. I moved over and I lived with people, and then I moved and I lived alone. Which did I prefer ultimately? I know which one my bank balance preferred. My bank balance definitely preferred living with people, and it was just extortionately expensive in London. It's just not practical financially long term to live on your own in London, unless you live way out, unless you're on a really, really high salary and it doesn't really matter. I mean, when I moved in to my own place after spending a year or two living with people, I found it very lonely. It was in the middle of winter, so I would come home from work and it would be pitch black, and the place would be cold, and it just felt horrid, like absolutely horrid. But you do learn to deal with that very, very quickly, and if you've been in bad living situations before, having your own space and controlling it how you like, and you know, things being left the way you want them to be left, there's a lot to be said for that. So I don't regret my time living alone. My bank balance regrets my time living alone. It's tricky to get that balance right, but living alone did ultimately suit me. Now that I live with my boyfriend, I think I would find it a transition if I were to go live alone again. I think in London, my advice would be to live with somebody, hopefully somebody that is respectful, gender-wise as well. I've lived with both males and females. Males were actually better. Do you know that? Do you know that males were better? And on that, that's the honest truth, and no offense to the girls that I've lived with. Boys were better. I don't know, can you hear this alarm? It's actually driving me up the wall. That's the only thing about living in a very highly densely populated place, is there'll be alarms and things. And the thing about moving to London is the architecture is stunning. Like, there are other cities that have beautiful architecture, but there's something about London, there's something about walking around St. Paul's, around the city, and there's so many places to explore. You can explore Hampstead, you can explore Richmond, you can go out to Wimbledon, you can explore like the new kind of Docklands areas, which are really, really exciting what they're doing there. There's just so many areas. You can go for a walk in Hyde Park, you can go to St. James's Park, you can go to the Olympic Park. There's just the architecture, the facilities, the bars, like the nightlife is so good. Dating in London when you move to London. All right, we're back again. Battery died again. I don't know, is this a sign to not post this video or just a sign to up my game? Probably the latter in terms of filming. All right, so we're talking about dating in London. What I would say is there are some very attractive individuals in London. Whether you're, whatever you're into, there's a lot of choice. Again, that can work to your favor, and that can also make people disposable. But in this day and age, everything to do with this is disposable, I think, because of apps, which, you know, I've met my current partner on an app. But in London, there are fantastically looking people. There are fantastic bars and venues, like good venues for dating in London. I mean, if you're thinking of moving to London to get a better circle to date, then totally do it. It's part of my reason as well, although maybe I shouldn't advertise that, but coming to London was a revelation, quite frankly, because there was every ethnicity, every type of person, and that makes me sound like a massive hoe. To be clear, I don't have any issues with the way I've dated. There are great options here, and there are great venues. So like Soho is such a fun place for a night out, but it's also crowded. So if you want something quieter, there's like literally there's every type of date scenario possible. there's amazing things on, amazing events on. Be careful of networking again. Okay, networking, I have a love-hate relationship with it. If you're launching your own business or if you're creative, networking can be so good. But then there's always like, with everything, like if you put yourself out there, you could be burned or you could get the best things ever. So it's like a lot of things. But London is a great place to find your tribe. You will meet, if you interact with London and you make the most of it. And I can understand why people are afraid when they come here first to really put themselves out there, but it's more about I focus less on finding friends, which sounds really odd, and more finding things that bring you peace. So whether that's like holistic retreats, and honestly, like one of the best things I did this year was go to a wellness retreat by Over the Moon Retreats, and I have a video on it, and you should check that video out because it was a really transformative day and something that I've never gone to wellness retreats before. I was like, wellness, okay, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna have people like do music over me and sing over me. Ugh, no, I don't want to do that with my life. I've been transformed, honestly, completely. So I think London is a great place to really subvert your expectations. It's a place to meet really smart people as well. And I know that sounds really odd, but it attracts such top talent in terms of whatever industry you like. You can find some people who are just flipping amazing at their game, and to be surrounded, it's very humbling to be surrounded by people who are that talented at what they do. But then it also puts you in touch and gives you a network, and like you see different perspectives. You can imagine, like, if you're going to your sibling and they're really steadfast in their opinion and you're trying to make them see a different perspective, it's exhausting. But London, you just see people from so many different backgrounds, so many different take on things, that you have to interact in London. You have to go from a place of just acceptance. And when you go to something from a place of acceptance, you start to see things differently and you start to see the nuances with things. And that can also be a thing about growing up. I mean, I came here when I was 24. I'm not 24 anymore. I'm not going to say what I am. Use your own judgment. Why don't you put in the comments below how old do you think I am? And then I can tell you whether you're right or wrong. God, that could be brutal. So London is such a great place to go to because you'll be surrounded by like the top individuals in their field. And like, you just don't, if you come from a small place, like you can absolutely love that place with all your heart. Like your soul, everything about you can be so connected to that place. But that doesn't mean you can't go and experience other things as well. I mean, I always think of like the Wizard of Oz story, and I know it's like as women not stepping out of their place, like, and going back home. I mean, there's that side of it. I love Wizard of Oz, the film, by the way, like I do, but I'm not oblivious to the subtext and that maybe women should stay at home because there's no place like home. But London is not a place like that. London is a place that if you throw yourself into it, oh my giddy gosh, what you can get back out of it is amazing. It actually is. I think I've spouted on. I think I've spilled enough tea here. I'm with my Hufflepuff mug. When I was younger, I wanted to be Gryffindor. Do you know what? Fuck that. I love Hufflepuff. Hufflepuff till I die. Hufflepuff and Guinness, as you can tell, until I die. Right, I think this has been enough rambling about spilling the tea. So my top tips again, if you're moving to London or you're moving to a city, is just flip and do it. If you overthink it, you will always find a reason not to go. Like there just will always be one. And you just, if you feel the urge to do it, just do it. Number two, it helps to get a job before you go because then you've got somewhere to look where you live. And yeah, I found that personally really helpful. I would live with people, particularly in London. It's just too expensive, and you don't want to come back broke. Although equally, living alone was nice, but I would recommend living with people, but people that you feel will be respectful towards you. Don't be too desperate to make friends. And I say that because I probably was, and I went to loads of meetups. Okay, now I'm being cut off by my camera because it says it's too hot in here. It's the middle of a heat wave and I'm sitting here with tea. It's 33 degrees outside in London. I came from Dublin and there's hardly any rain by comparison in London. Some people, I know my friends who came from New Zealand, think that London is so rainy by comparison. So it really is the devil, you know, is what I'd say. Oh my God, the food. How could I even have not mentioned the food? London food, I adore. Just the variety. And Dublin food is not bad. Dublin food is really good in my view, but just the variety of places of food. Because you have people living here from there, bringing their home recipes to make it here. Like, it's just, amazing. I cannot tell you how much I love the food here. Like, it makes me never want to leave London, the food, because I am that foodie obsessed. Oh my god, I'm going down a rabbit hole now. Yeah, dating in London, amazing. Just, maybe I shouldn't say it. Well, I found what I hope to be my forever person. And I would, when you're gonna go on dates, wait till you have a friendship group or some friends that you really trust. If you know anybody in the city, it doesn't matter if you haven't spoken to them in years, reach out to them, because odds are they'll probably give you some comfort just having them here. But yeah, I hope you found that interesting. Tune in for the next edition of Spilling the Tea. I am Caroline. Please subscribe. But that sounds really, really like desperate. No, it's like, oh yeah, if you want to subscribe, yeah, that would be cool. Also, if you have a question about what it's like to move to London or a city by yourself, like, put it in the comments. Like, I engage on every single one of my comments. Thank you so much for wasting a few minutes with me. All right, bye guys.